BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Bryce Koon, the crowded booth, 247 Sports. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Blake, how's everything going? You doing well?
I'm doing well. You know, the Bryce, I get pretty antsy during the bye week because multiple things with the wife happen. You probably understand this more than most. When you get the bye week, things get ramped up around the house.
Honey-do list, for sure.
Well, and see, my little girl Jewel, she came during the bye week between LSU and Bama a couple of years ago. She was like, you know what? Dad's got to work. He can't miss Bama week. I was literally holding Jewel as a newborn when Mason Taylor went in the back of the end zone, bang, touchdown. And how she did not wake up when I freaked out, I will never know.
I don't think I've told you. I've probably told you this, Blake, and in no way does it beat that story that you just gave. But this is the 2-year anniversary of when my wife and I first visited to see if we'd even take the job to come down here to Baton Rouge. It was this weekend. I was working, obviously, covering the ACC, and it was the one bye week we had. And so what a game. And what a time to be in Baton Rouge with traffic. You never set foot inside the city limits, and you get to experience Alabama LSU weekend in terms of traffic around campus. So at the very least, we were like, it can't get any worse than this, right? Like this is as bad as it gets.
Well, Garth Brooks thing comes to town and all shit goes down. All shit goes to hell. But I do agree. I mean, outside of Garth Brooks, LSU Bama from a traffic perspective is going to be the worst. When they build that new stadium, they need to build like an on-ramp to the interstate so that, if you're going to spend $500 million, what's an extra $100 million to get an interstate put in? That's all I'm going to say. I'll throw that out there, but what do I know? So Bryce Koon joining us. I'm glad you're here with us. So I'm going to ask you this. You've been in recruiting for a while, and I don't want to talk about specific like recruits, but a big game like this with this many high-profile kids coming in here. Bryce, I know money's money and NIL's NIL and all that stuff's going to figure itself out. I mean, that's a different beast. Mm-hmm. You beat Bama on Saturday night with a kid like Jahkeem Stewart in town. That's a big deal, man. Like, recruiting's still recruiting, right?
Hands down. And I kind of, to give a little parallel to this, on our channel, we're getting ready to release an interview with Aaron Gregory, one of the top 2026 receivers. We talked to him, and he obviously committed to A&M at the A&M LSU game. And I kind of, one of the questions I posed to him, Blake, was money. I mean, obviously we know, like, we can talk with the kids about it. You can be open. NIL's there. We know A&M has it. But I said, how much does an atmosphere, and you combine that with an emotional game like that, like, does that still play? Maybe for you and your experience, does that still play when you talk to other guys? And he said it's still one of the top things, like obviously relationships with coaches and NIL. But I think that, for LSU, it's not just that you got to go win the football game. It's for your guys that are in the building. And that's obviously should be the most important thing, for those guys, and focusing on them that are there inside that locker room. But Blake, a win against Alabama, I mean, I wasn't covering the team at the time. I would love to go back and look at what was that visitor list like in 2022 when they beat them, and what was the domino effect?
JV Toviano was the biggest domino in that one. Yep. And in 2018, it would have been Jamar Chase, John Emery, Jets was still here. I'd have to go back through that class, but Jamar Chase was the cream of the crop in that one.
So you look at those games, okay, and you look at what they mean. look, kids are still kids. They're still going to look in awe at the lights, at the atmosphere, what's going on, and it still matters to them. So with Jahkeem Stewart in the building, with a plethora of guys that are committed, that are obviously, they've been texting back and forth, but now to be there shoulder to shoulder with these guys kind of, in the pregame. I've said this, I've covered recruiting, not just in the state of Louisiana, but covered it in Georgia as well. Been to many games where you get to see how the recruits interact with players in the field. I think LSU does a really good job of having it not just a stand around time, but they sit in that corner of the end zone where they really get to feel the student section behind them. And then right as LSU's about to leave the field to come back out, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, when they run to the corner of the end zone. And I think they I can't remember what song they play, but I mean, it's a chills moment, and the kids love it. Like, you can tell these guys, like, okay, this is big time SEC football. So all of that stuff that for fans, we might just be like, oh yeah, it's cool. Like, the kids still care, and they still like that. And I know that money dominates this sport. I know all that kind of stuff. But man, if you win on Saturday, you're talking about momentum, not for just the group that's in that locker room currently, but for a recruiting staff that I know is working their tail off to try to close some of these things as we get close to this early signing day, which, Blake, I cannot believe we're less than 4 weeks away, from that date.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, Bryce. And so I bring up even like the Bryce Underwood deal. I mean, everybody and their mama wants to talk about it, and I'm not going to shy away from it. I mean, Bryce, the things out there. I mean, like the Portnoy things out there, the money things out there, right? And I think that, look, you can't convince me, Bryce, that if you win and that kid's having a great time and he's loving it and he's freaking out and he's storming the field, if that even happens. Now, I'm not condoning storming the field when you beat a 3-loss Bama team, but all I'm saying is that's when money starts pouring in. You make the playoff, that's when money starts pouring in for this kind of stuff.
Hands down. And, I'll speak a little bit to it. Anyone who is shocked by – oh no, reading the headlines, in terms of what Michigan's doing, that's not a surprise, guys. Like everybody does that with their top in-state talent. It's not something that's completely unheard of. People on Michigan staff, their heads should roll if they're not doing it, type of stuff. I mean, if you're not making a last-ditch effort, especially what you've seen on the field this season at the quarterback position for the Wolverines. So, but you go back into what it could mean in terms of that, Blake. I mean, it's huge. It's imperative. Kids care about the in-game atmosphere. They care about those things. And, I think too, this is really for a lot of the guys, especially the out-of-state guys. Like, you got your in-state kids who, we talk to them all the time. Like Jace Thomas is a great kid out there in Destrehan. The kid's been on, every single game this year. JD LaFleur is another one. I mean, a legacy, like, you're not worried about those. Those guys will probably come back for Vandy in Oklahoma just because, they want to be around the program. But for a guy like Bryce Underwood, I think it's just kind of make sure that you've dotted the I's, you cross your T's and all that type of stuff. Like, it feels, I might go on a limb here, it feels like a formality. It feels like LSU understands. From what I've heard and been told, they didn't get caught with their pants down when Michigan, this rumor stuff came out about Michigan. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, yeah, it's real. They know what's going on. So this atmosphere on Saturday is huge for him in terms of just kind of, the wink, the nods of saying like, yeah, you're good. Joe Sloan up there last week was really big for that. So I'm not necessarily concerned about Bryce Underwood. I think when you start hearing things from him or any type of cryptic stuff, that's when you start to get a little concerned. And Blake, to my knowledge, at least, we haven't heard anything that would suggest anything that would shift or change right now.
Bryce, I think that the normal fan has a problem with paying close to 7 figures to a high school recruit, and I think that here's what my combatant has been in that. Okay, the last thing I'd say on recruiting are this: hey, big dog, if they're here for 4 years, they're going to make $1 million in TV revenue money. Mm-hmm. They're going to make $250,000. So a kid's going to make $1 million if he stays 4 years here anyway. So you want to talk about the 7 figures? Like, okay, good for you. All right. But the bottom line is like, that's here. We're not speculating on that part anymore, Bryce. You know what I mean? Like, that went through the House court. And look, I'm not trying to get political here at all, but like Ted Cruz, that's a big deal. Because he's over the committee that's now going to be foreseeing this too. So I mean, again, it's here. So listen, this is what Ben Ruffino is going to do in 2027. He's going to redshirt in year 1, okay, and then we're going to play the 4 years. We're going to milk every single ounce of this money.
why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, seriously. Like, I mean, you know, I've got my 5-month-old daughter in there, and we got to get her some basketball shoes and get ready to go for Kim Mulkey. I mean, that's what we got to do, right? Like, you know, I don't have an issue. This is the thing: the people who are still complaining about it, you might not like it, is what it is. I mean, you're not going to change what this sport has become now. Now we might see changes in 5-10 years, maybe sooner, to some addendums to what we're learning at this sport is. But in terms of large scale, that shift has happened. LSU has to play the game. I get that you don't like it, but it does make it all more important that you win, because when you are in the race and you're in the sweepstakes for a guy like Bryce Underwood and you're paying what you have to pay, you better win with it. Like, I mean, I'll just say this and don't want to get too far off topic. I've said repeatedly, if Tennessee doesn't reach a national title game with Nico, that's a failure, because the amount that you invested into him, that's the expectation. Guys like Nico, and I still think he's a great player. He's got time to develop, but you got essentially another year potentially of him, since he's be a redshirt sophomore, unless he takes a massive jump. You got to go deep and make a playoff run, because guys like that don't grow on trees. And I'd say the same thing for Bryce Underwood. Kelly's future might be tied to what they do with Bryce Underwood in terms of that development.
I mean, you're not wrong. And I'm thinking about Nico. I know people don't want to talk Tennessee.
Yeah.
At minimum, they got to make it to a semifinal.
You got to make it to a top 4 situation.
No doubt. And if you get there, I think, considering where you came from, and then you have, the Brandon kid that they have committed, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
then it would be for Heupel's situation, like, hey, man, you revamped it with Nico and Hooker. Now can you sustain, I think, but that's at minimum, right? Like, I mean, that's all things considered. All right, Bryce Koon, the Crowded Booth, and 247 Sports joins us. Let's get to the real topic of why people want to be here. They're like, y'all shut y'all's mouth. LSU-Bama. Bryce, what's your pulse on this game? I'm going to leave it open-ended to you. What's your pulse on it?
Man, this is my 4th show of the day talking about this game. And
busy week, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty big week.
Busy week, right.
Pretty big week. Blake, we can take this a lot of different ways. My concern, and I went back, got the 5-month-old, so we got some late nights. So I'll turn on the film on YouTube there, for about 2 a.m. and start watching. My biggest concern is, we know what Jalen Milroe can do off script. Like, that's not going to surprise anybody. We know what's going to happen. He's going to run around and do what he's going to do. Outside contain scares me in this game, and gap integrity and sound fundamental, just playing in your lane, scares me in terms of the front seven. And I asked Savion Jones this, the importance of not rushing past Jalen Milroe. Like, they had success with that against Taylon Green. I don't know if Taylon Green's the true runner that people are trying to make him out to be when they talk about, well, they did this against Arkansas. Well, yeah, but, he's a dual threat, but he's not the pure runner. Now,
how'd you do against Lenore Sellers is what I really want to know.
Exactly. Go back and watch the South Carolina tape. And I'm not saying that you can't evolve. Teams are I'm not saying LSU's the same team they were in September. That I can't get past that, Blake. Like, for me to confidently say LSU can win this game, I can't get past wondering if things start to spiral, can LSU rein it back in? Because that's a hard dude to rein it back in on. Like, once he gets rolling, like I've said this, and if he gets a little rhythm in the passing game like he did in that first half against Georgia, he's truly one of the top 3, top 5 most unguardable players in the country.
Oh, no doubt.
I genuinely don't know how you rein it back in. Now, Georgia did a good job of that in the second half. So you have to go look at what they did. Problem is, Georgia has a better talent on that defensive line than LSU does.
Especially in the interior.
So that's my big concern. We can talk about Nussmeier. We can talk about, Alabama's secondary, which I think is way better than I think they're better than they were earlier in the season. That's my big concern. I can't get past that, because if LSU starts to try to play backyard football, I think Milroe beats them at that. And that's my biggest concern if I'm an LSU fan heading into this game.
What's your biggest what do you think the biggest strength is? Like LSU's biggest strength?
I kind of talked about this, and a lot of it hinges on C.J. Daniels. I haven't seen the injury report, by the way. Has it officially dropped yet?
It comes out around 7:05, 7:10.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's right. I'm used to the 7 o'clock show. That's what it is.
Yeah, me too. But Matt McMahon, with the audacity that he just couldn't push the game back one more day when we go live at 6. The audacity.
You gotta hate it. The biggest strength to me is I think LSU's receivers have the upper hand against Alabama's secondary. And I don't think Alabama's secondary is bad, but it's so well balanced. And if they get Mason Taylor involved early, you can't key in on a guy. Like, I mentioned the injury report. CJ Daniels was never, in my opinion, going to be the 1,000-yard receiver for this team. He wasn't going to get enough looks in that. Like, that's what he was at Liberty, and that's why he has the opportunity to play at LSU. But you start to kind of look, and I was talking with someone who does scouting in the NFL, and they said, watch how many times he has his back to the end zone. And what you mean by that is that he is a really good possession receiver. Third and 5, 3rd and 6, running that out route, running that curl route, a physical body over the middle of the field. Like, it's not necessarily flashy, but it feels like it's a pretty good safety blanket for Garrett Nussmeier at times. Because when you put him on the field, Blake, then we talk about how you're going to guard Aaron Anderson. I think Joe Sloan can get really creative with where he matches him up. Kyron Lacey, obviously, and then Mason Taylor. I mean, that's 4 guys, and I don't care how good your defense is. That's hard. Like, you're going to have to ask your guys to win a lot of one-on-one battles and be very disciplined with their eyes in zone coverage. And I think that's where LSU has the upper hand. And then I also like LSU's. I like the yak. I like the yards after the catch. Like, I think they could do very well in that category because they got some guys that can move around.
Yeah, you love the yak, and you're not talking about the goat.
That's true.
I was wondering if anybody would get that pun. Here's the problem I have with that. I agree with everything that you just said. Mm-hmm. The problem that I have is that Nuss does not throw to them enough.
Yeah. We're talking that's a hypothetical because everything I just said is it would be nice, but he doesn't throw to them enough.
Well, here's the problem I have, okay? I'm just going to be open with you. Let's take the turnovers away for just a moment. Just hypothetically. Aaron Anderson is 4 yards behind Kyron Lacey in receiving yards. He has half the targets. So it means I'm getting more production when I'm going to Aaron Anderson. Now, I'm not saying that Aaron Anderson is built to be your number 1 wide receiver. However, if he's my number 2, then he's the best number 2 in the SEC right now, considering the amount of targets, the amount of catches versus the touchdowns and yards. Yeah. I kind of compared it to he would be what Malik without the touchdowns, right? I mean, Malik was not as targeted, okay, and he had insane yards. I mean, Chris Hilton being back, I think, is a big deal. But Bryce, I think that this kid could be a 1,000-yard receiver. Like he's on pace for being a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, if he has the 80 in the next 5 games that he plays, at minimum, he's going to be there. So I think that I look at him and I'm saying I love the philosophy of going to CJ, Chris, Mason, and Aaron. The problem I have is that over 50% of your targets is going to Kyron.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you look at this, Blake, I think you really have to gauge the fact that every single time, and you kind of said this, Aaron Anderson touches the ball, it feels like something explosive happens.
Every time.
Every time. It's not just a 5-yard pickup here, 6-yard pickup here. Like you talked about, he doesn't get the volume, but what he does with his opportunities, and seriously, like I'm not a guru when it comes to this. I don't know if it's his route running, his separation, a combination of both. Like he a lot of times he doesn't have guys draped all over him. Like he's
I think he's physical for his size. I mean, think about the hit at A&M on the third down, the out route where he's bouncing off of dudes, and I'm like, okay, man.
Yeah.
So
I like what Aaron Anderson brings to the table. You go back to that touchdown that he had at A&M. I mean, a lot of A&M fans were just kind of complaining, like, well, it's busted coverage. I'm like, no, he destroyed angles. Like, he caught that ball, and where you thought you had an angle on him, it was gone. Like, it was just gone.
All right, last one. I know we got to roll out of here. I appreciate your time. Thoughts on how this game goes? Who are you taking here?
I'm not glad we're not doing this in person, Blake.
Oh,
Man,
look, if you take Bama, I'm not going to be mad. Now, I'll tell you this. There's a affiliate that you have with CBS who was threatened this week at a national show. So I'm going to say he was threatened.
well, that's that's not a surprise. That's not a surprise. Look, I believe in home field advantage. You've got me hooked. You know what I mean? Like you have me hooked on LSU Tiger Stadium. You have me hooked. You had me. I can fully believe. I know LSU collapsed in that game at A&M. That crowd standing on the sideline, that they played a factor. It's just different.
However,
I just worry, Blake. I mean, you can't let. I know Alabama's not running Milroe as much as they have. I get that. But if they do, like if Kalen DeBoer's smart, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, and they're going to say, "Okay,
he's going to do it.
You struggle with this. We're gonna do this until you have shown that you can defend it. And if they don't defend it, man, he's going to run wild." And last year in Tuscaloosa, we were watching with the press box, and I just have those terrible flashbacks of watching.
You have Milroe
12,
PTSD.
3rd and 10, yeah, and watching him just. I know it's a different defense, a different coaching staff. I just have those memories of him just gut-wrenching 3rd and long conversions. And yeah, I mean, I think LSU could win this game, wouldn't surprise me. Alabama could win this game, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm leaning Alabama right now, and that's here on Wednesday night. I understand the discipline issues. I get it. I understand. There's not one storyline that you're going to tell an LSU or Alabama writer or media member at this point. They're not going to have heard. We're going to talk the dog out of this game until Saturday night. There's just something I'm just Nuss's decision-making, the decisiveness factor, and leaky 3rd down defense are the 2 factors I think Alabama could beat them at, and LSU could beat themselves at. So you said earlier, I don't think Alabama's the more talented team on paper. I don't think they are, but that does not matter. Nobody cares who you are coming off the bus anymore. You walk into our stadium, it doesn't matter. So I got Alabama winning close right now, man, but I could flip it. It could go either way.
Last thing, I swear to gosh, because I got to roll too, but here's the bottom line. I don't care what anybody tells me. You have what I consider a 6 turnover performance with 2 missed field goals, a bad snap, and 3 interceptions. You're not beating anybody.
No.
I mean, and listen, Bryce, I'm done at this point with this. Spare me. I'm tired of the picks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, Carson Beck does not get – I mean, Carson Beck gets more hate than Garrett, and they have the same amount of picks. I mean, At some point, we got to turn off the purple and gold glasses here, man.
Well, and this thing, I get everyone loves him. He stayed through the time. I get that's cool. That's cool. That doesn't make you absent of criticism. And look, I enjoy talking to Nuss. I will be straight up honest with you. They did player interviews with him yesterday. I didn't even talk to him because I don't. He's so up on coach speak at this point, and that's fine. I get that, man. We just got to play better. Okay, yeah. I mean, we all know that. Like, we can see that. My mom calls me, "Hey, that quarterback's got to play better." Okay, yeah, of course. I mean, you got to take the purple and gold glasses off. You've got to be real about it. He's got to play well. If he doesn't play well in this game, like, you have to have a serious conversation of like, this is a disappointment. Like it's disappointing season for him in terms of what you wanted to accomplish.
Oh, no doubt.
It is, and so it'll be interesting to watch going forward.
I would rather you not make the throw and it not get picked than make the throw and it get picked.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, you're right.
All right, Bryce Koon, 247 Sports, the Crowded Booth. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it, brother.